members.
Do you think it's had, some people have said that had a crucial effect on your mayoralty as a whole, and that has poisoned the ground for your successor, or your appointed successor, the garbage strike?
Well, I mean, it's obviously part of the narrative of my mayoralty. You know, from my perspective, when it's really difficult like that, you know, when I was at the press conferences, which, you know, it's a rather interesting experience to be at press conferences, mayor, in those kind of circumstances, one of the thoughts I had was, I'm glad I'm doing this and not somebody else, frankly. As I did my level best to handle it in a way that resulted in the strike being over as soon as possible, in city services remaining affordable, because I didn't want to see somebody come in as mayor who would privatize everything, because I think that's wrong and short-sighted, and you know, not the right thing to do. Are there some Torontonians who are mad at public sector workers? Yes. Were there Torontonians who were mad at public sector workers before that? Oh, yes. Mm-hmm. So, you know, it was a difficult time, and I regret that it happened. I don't think I could have done anything different. I've looked at it every different way, and we did our level best, and that's all you can do.
No, I'm glad I'm not asking questions, because I might have been a little bit too timid to ask you this one, which comes from the audience. Why did you not come out in stronger support of the activists during the G20 disturbances?
Because I've been to demonstrations in many countries, actually. I was in the Days of Action, and I think what happened on the Saturday was reprehensible. And I don't believe, as the organizers of the protest did, that a diversity of tactics is right. What a diversity of tactics means is you're condoning people doing the things that the Black Bloc did. I don't accept that. I'm the mayor of Toronto, and I have to say, it's the one time in my mayoralty that I was absolutely furious and livid. I went down Queen Street right during the middle of when people were lighting police cars on fire in our city. And perhaps my anger colored my judgment a little bit, but I was absolutely outraged that people were doing this. I thought it was unacceptable. And as somebody who's been involved in numerous protests with never a hint of violence, I know it's absolutely unnecessary and it hurts your cause. So that's why I stood by the police. Second thing, two or three things here. I think the one question people aren't asking, and I don't understand why they aren't, is the police used laws that exist. And the one question I would hope activists would ask is, there's a law in this country that says if a police officer on reasonable and probable grounds believes that you're disturbing the peace, you can be arrested for up to 24 hours without charge. That's the law in this country. The police use that law. People disagree with it, including the people who applauded here tonight and many others. I get it on Twitter all the time. But people should be asking the question, why do we have that law in the first place? Right? That law is the issue. And what happened in the G20 showed what can happen because of that law. And I think people should be asking very strongly whether that's a law that's really appropriate in this country. You know, final point, I guess, John, I had to stay downtown that night because of my responsibilities, given what had happened. Happened to stay in the hotel with the police officers who'd been on the front lines. And they were disheartened, distraught, exhausted, shocked. And some of the things that had happened to them, they felt never should have happened to them in this country. And don't forget that the Toronto police officers had been the ones who protested the policed the Tamil protest and allowed, you know, in fact got criticized for allowing the protest.
Well, so can I interrupt you? What happened to that? That was a very impressive operation, and there was a huge amount of criticism done, but it came off without a hitch. Ultimately, nobody was hurt. Nobody was really upset. We saw something completely different at the G20.
Things. People blew up police cars and attacked the police. I'm not making this up. And from my perspective, attacked lowly paid, hourly paid workers, often kids, in stores. You know, American Apparel, all their workers were like under 23. The manager didn't happen to be there. The black bloc smashed the window. You know, all these young people went into the basement and were terrified, right? That's what people were doing, and the police had to react to that. The second thing that happened is that it wasn't just Toronto Police. And I think that's one of the things in all these inquiries that will come out. Like the incident at Spadina and Queen, when people were kept waiting in the rain, was outrageous. And that only ended because Chief Bill Blair stepped in personally. Now, I'm not certain of this. So Global Television, you can't report this part because I don't know it to be absolutely certain. But I do believe...
Turn on the machine.
I do believe that almost all of the officers at that intersection were OPP officers, not Toronto Police. I may be wrong, but that's what I believe. And it didn't stop until Chief Blair personally intervened to stop it, because that's the kind of police chief he is. So I think you had those two issues, these unusual circumstances of people deliberately committing violence and bringing things with them to commit violence. And the second thing is it wasn't totally under the authority of the Toronto Police. There were lots of others who maybe have a different style of policing involved.
Okay, here's a nicer question. Excuse me. Well, we all know you love Toronto, and we hope you'll stay and live here. If you could go and live in any other city, which one would it be?
I'll tell you on Tuesday.
Okie dokie. That's an invitation for whoever wrote that question.
I really like Berlin, by the way. I'm not going to go live in Berlin, but I think Berlin's an amazing city, the sense of history. And I'm lucky enough, one of my university friends is a professor there, and he had a fellowship there and things, and I've visited him every 2 or 3 years since about 1984. And so I've happened to personally watch the changes, and he's a free market economist. Shocking that I'd be friends with such a person, but he's a free market economist. I studied economics with him, actually. A free market economist from Louisiana, and he got a job at Karl Marx University. So I have an interesting perspective on that.
Does the Toronto Sun know that you visited Karl Marx University?
Well, they wrote it anyway without asking.
Have you ever been a member of the Communist Party?
No, I've not. I'm not a member of any political party, John. You know that. It was in your newspaper, therefore it has to be true.
But so you're not an NDPer anymore?
No.
But this race is breaking down on pure partisan lines, and you're taking the most partisan line. The NDPers are all sticking together, and liberals and conservatives.
I'm not sure that's the case. I was at an event earlier today supporting the Pantaloni campaign, and the first two people I shook hands with were extremely prominent progressive conservatives who used to work in progressive conservative governments in this province. So I wouldn't say it that way at all. Mm-hmm. I'd say it's between the city builder and the others.
Okay.
Have I made that point?
We'll move on to something much more important and relevant, which is, how did your years of playing rugby help you in your role as mayor of Toronto?
Who asked that question? Well, sorry? I wasn't bad. I wasn't bad. I played in the Ontario Rugby Union First Division, and we had